While my father's casket was still above ground, Brenda pulled out a stack of real estate flyers and started distributing them to the mourners. I watched in horror as my stepmother turned Dad's funeral reception into an estate sale. She'd printed full-color brochures advertising prestigious estate sale. Everything must go, complete with photos of our family home, the one my late mother had specifically left to me in her will. The question burning in my mind as I reached for the sealed envelope in my jacket pocket was whether Dad had known exactly what kind of woman he'd married. Get them while they're hot, Brenda chirped, pressing glossy flyers into the hands of confused relatives. The house will be listed Monday at $2.4 million, but I'm willing to entertain pre-market offers from family. Think of it as Bill's final gift. My father had been dead for exactly 4 days. The dirt on his grave wasn't even settled, and here was his wife of 3 years treating his memorial like a liquidation event. Brenda, Aunt Helen tried to intervene gently. Perhaps this isn't the appropriate time. Nonsense. Brenda waved her manicured hand dismissively. Bill would want me to be practical. No point in maintaining all these assets when it's just me now. The house alone costs a fortune in property taxes. The house. My chest tightened as I watched her tap the photo of the Victorian where I'd grown up, where my mother had planted roses that still bloomed every spring, where Dad had promised her on her deathbed that I'd always have a home. Excuse me, Mr. Albertson, Dad's lawyer, pushed through the crowd looking deeply uncomfortable. Mrs. Morrison, I really must insist we discuss the estate privately before you make any commitments. Oh, Harold, Brenda laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Always so formal. I've already reviewed everything. Very straightforward. Married spouse inherits all. I had my lawyer confirm it this morning. That's when I stood up, my hand closing around the envelope Dad had pressed into my palm 3 nights ago as machines kept him breathing just long enough to say goodbye. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the funeral home's hushed atmosphere, I think there might be some confusion about the estate. Brenda's eyes narrowed, but her smile remained fixed. Lily, sweetheart, I know this is hard. Losing your father so young. You're what, 26? But I promise I'll make sure you get some nice mementos before the estate sale. Perhaps your mother's china. My mother's china? I repeated slowly. How generous of you to offer me my own inheritance. Your inheritance? She laughed again, that same brittle sound. Dear, your mother's been gone for 15 years. Any claim you might have had expired long ago. Interesting legal theory. I pulled out the envelope, noting how several relatives leaned in with interest. Dad seemed to think differently. What's that supposed to be? Brenda's voice sharpened. Something Dad gave me Tuesday night, about an hour before he died. I turned to Mr. Albertson. He said you'd know what to do with it. The lawyer's face went pale as he recognized Dad's handwriting on the envelope. To be opened only upon my death, William Morrison. That's impossible, Brenda snapped. Bill was heavily sedated. He couldn't have. He woke up, I interrupted. Long enough to call me to his room. Long enough to give me this. Long enough to tell me he was sorry. Sorry for what? Uncle Pete asked. I handed the envelope to Mr. Albertson. Maybe you should read it. His hands trembled slightly as he broke the seal. The room fell silent except for the soft rustle of paper. As he read, his expression shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked like fear. This is... He started, then cleared his throat. This is a codicil to William Morrison's will, properly witnessed by 2 nurses and notarized by, dear God, by Judge Catherine Wells. Judge Wells was at the hospital Tuesday night, someone whispered. What does it say? Brenda demanded, reaching for the document. Mr. Albertson stepped back, holding it away from her. Mrs. Morrison, this document fundamentally alters the estate distribution. That's ridiculous. You can't change a will on your deathbed. Actually, Judge Wells herself stepped forward from the back of the room where she'd been standing quietly. You can. Especially when you discover your current will was created under unusual circumstances. Brenda's perfectly composed face cracked slightly. Catherine, I didn't see you come in. I've been here the whole time, Brenda. Watching you hawk Bill's possessions like a vulture. The judge turned to Mr. Albertson. Please continue, Harold. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and read. I, William Morrison, being of sound mind despite my physical condition, do hereby modify my last will and testament. Recent discoveries have compelled me to correct a terrible injustice. What discoveries? Brenda's voice had gone shrill. Mr. Albertson continued. First, I restore the family home at 42, Elmwood Drive to my daughter, Lily Morrison, as was always intended by her late mother, Margaret Morrison. The property was never mine to will away, as it was held in trust for Lily, to transfer to her upon my death. Gasps rippled through the room. I felt my knees go weak. That's a lie, Brenda shouted. I've seen the deed. Bill's name was added fraudulently, Mr. Albertson read on. As I recently discovered when reviewing old papers. My late wife Margaret established an irrevocable trust for the property, naming me as trustee only. I allowed my current wife to believe otherwise, a deception I deeply regret. You're making this up. Brenda grabbed for the papers again, but Judge Wells intercepted her. There's more, Mr. Albertson said gravely. Furthermore, I revoke all provisions made for Brenda Morrison, née Brenda Carlyle, upon discovering that our marriage was enacted under false pretenses. The room erupted. Brenda's face went white, then red. How dare you? It seems, the lawyer continued, raising his voice, that Mrs. Morrison was already married at the time of our wedding. To one Robert Carlyle, currently serving time in Arizona for fraud. A fact discovered by my physician, Dr. James Park, who recognized her from his previous practice in Phoenix. Dr. Park stepped forward. She was my patient there, under the name Brenda Carlyle. When I mentioned I thought I recognized her, she claimed I was mistaken. But I never forget a patient, especially one whose husband was arrested for scamming elderly people out of their life savings. This is slander, Brenda hissed. It's public record, Judge Wells said calmly. I verified it myself Tuesday night after Bill called me. Your divorce from Robert Carlyle was never finalized. Your marriage to Bill Morrison is legally void. The floor seemed to shift beneath Brenda's feet. Her real estate flyers fluttered from her hands, settling around her shoes like accusations. As such, Mr. Albertson concluded, I leave my entire estate to my daughter, Lily Morrison, with the exception of charitable donations outlined in Schedule A. To Brenda Carlyle, I leave nothing but the hope that she might someday reflect on the harm she's caused. You can't do this. Brenda turned on me, her composure completely shattered. I took care of him for 3 years. I deserve. You isolated him from his family, I said quietly. You convinced him I only visited for money. You tried to sell my mother's house while planning his funeral. My voice grew stronger. What exactly do you think you deserve? Your father loved me. My father was lonely, I corrected. And you targeted him just like your husband targeted those other elderly people. The only difference is you used marriage instead of mail fraud. Brenda's lawyer, who'd been hovering near the door, stepped forward. Ms. Carlyle, we should leave. Now. So you knew too? Aunt Helen asked him. The man's silence was damning. He took Brenda's arm, but she jerked away. This isn't over, she snarled at me. I'll contest this will. You'll be arrested if you don't leave quietly, Judge Wells interrupted. There's a warrant in Arizona with your name on it. Something about violating parole by leaving the state. That finally did it. Brenda grabbed her purse and fled, her lawyer scrambling after her. The room burst into chaos, relatives talking over each other, processing the revelation. I sank into a chair, overwhelmed. Uncle Pete brought me water while Aunt Helen gathered up the scattered real estate flyers with visible disgust. Did Dad really call you Tuesday night? I asked Judge Wells. She nodded. He was remarkably lucid. Said Dr. Park's revelation had cleared his mind like nothing else. He was horrified at what he'd almost let happen. The house was always yours, Mr. Albertson confirmed. Your mother was very specific in her trust documents. But Bill had been showing signs of confusion even before Brenda arrived. He genuinely seemed to forget about the trust. And once she had her hooks in him, she convinced him everyone was lying, Dr. Park added. Classic manipulation. I've seen it before with her husband's victims. I thought about the last 3 years, how Dad had grown distant, how Brenda always had excuses for why he couldn't come to the phone, how she'd slowly painted me as a gold digger while she systematically cataloged his assets. He died thinking I hated him, I whispered. No, Judge Wells said firmly. He died knowing the truth. He died protecting you. That envelope? He had me bring it Tuesday afternoon, before he took a turn for the worse. He knew he was running out of time. What did he say? At the end. She smiled sadly. He said, Tell Lily the roses still bloom every spring. Tell her I'm sorry I forgot to tend them. I broke down then, sobbing for the father I'd lost twice, once to Brenda's manipulations and finally to cancer. Arms surrounded me, Aunt Helen, Uncle Pete, cousins I hadn't seen in years because Brenda had convinced Dad they only wanted his money. Later, as the reception wound down, I found myself standing in the parking lot with Mr. Albertson. The house transfer will be straightforward, he assured me. The trust documents are ironclad. Brenda never had any real claim. Will she really be arrested? Probably not, unless she's foolish enough to return to Arizona. But she won't get anything from the estate. Her marriage to your father was void from the start. I looked back at the funeral home where Dad's casket waited for tomorrow's burial. He figured it out in the end. That has to count for something. He loved you, Lily. Even when she had him confused, some part of him knew. Why else would he keep paying the property taxes on the house? Why maintain the rose garden? He was waiting to remember. That night, I drove to the house, my house, though it felt strange to think of it that way. The key still worked. Brenda hadn't had time to change the locks. Everything looked different, her gaudy furniture, her modern art replacing Mom's landscapes. But beneath it all, the bones of my childhood home remained. In the garden, despite 3 years of neglect, Mom's roses bloomed defiant in the darkness. Dad was right, they came back every spring, no matter what. I found the envelope on his desk, the one marked for Lily, when I remember. Inside, years of birthday cards he'd never sent, letters explaining his confusion, apologizing for his distance. All dated from after Brenda's arrival. He'd been fighting to break through, even when he couldn't quite grasp what was wrong. The last entry was from 2 weeks ago. Lily, something's not right with Brenda. Can't put my finger on it. If you're reading this, I figured it out. I'm sorry. The roses know the truth. Love, Dad. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried again, for time lost, for manipulation uncovered too late, for a father who'd found his way back just in time to say goodbye. Brenda vanished that night, according to the police who came by the next morning. Her accounts were frozen, her assets scrutinized. Turns out Dad wasn't her first victim, just her most ambitious con. The funeral proceeded without her theatrical presence. Family gathered, sharing real memories instead of calculating property values. The house filled with people and laughter and tears, the way it used to be before Brenda built her walls. And in the garden, Mom's roses bloomed on, witnesses to the truth that manipulation can obscure but never fully erase. Love finds a way to protect what matters, even from beyond the grave. Even if it takes a deathbed revelation to bring it to light.